Hi, and welcome to ManchTalk. I'm Tammy Simmons.
And I'm Carla Garrick.
And here we are again in our own homes, practicing social distancing and keeping ourselves safe from the people who aren't, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, yes, here we are. We're all taking responsibility. I think it's really important for people back home to understand that although I like to criticize all things, I think you can both be criticizing the response from a very centralized government level, but then also just be taking your own, reasonable precautions from when this started. I was wearing masks and gloves. If I was
you were one of the.
I thought I would.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Reach, any place that I thought, we would actually interact with people. If I'm out on a trail, I've been doing a lot of hiking. This
I know.
Kind of not the worst of things.
Oh, I'm thinking, I got like my lower raised beds are all done, all raked out. I mean, I haven't put mulch down because I don't want to. I think I'm jumping the gun because we did go to Lowe's on whatever day, Sunday, and bought 20 bags of mulch, which Dan thinks is absolutely insane. But that's because every time I take back a little bit more of this property, it needs more mulch. So why not buy it when it's $2 a bag? But I did rake, and I don't want to mulch too much because the little plants need time. I feel like I'm suffocating them. But it was nice to be able to do that now at the beginning of April, even though it's still going to rain. I mean, it's going to be crappy for the rest of the week until the weekend, but at least I feel like I'm getting outside, and we haven't taken any super exciting hikes. We took Jenny for a walk over the weekend, but as I said to you the other day, I do want to get up to Cedar Swamp. Local.
Yes, and then of course you and Dan, with all the social distancing that needed to happen, you brought us some beautiful little plant that.
Well, we went to, I mean, I think we're all avoiding going places that we don't need to go. If you don't need to go to the grocery store, you don't go. I mean, I have realized that Dan and I probably used to go to the grocery store 4 times a week. We live in a city, and we would just go. Like, I'd take food out of the freezer and then be like, yeah, I don't really want that. I'll go to the grocery store. So now.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I like to bulk shop. We buy almost everything online. I go to my farmer's stall once a week, mostly because I order fish from him, Johnson's Golden Harvest at Exit 10 in Hooksett. But other than that, I like to buy a lot of stuff. I have my deep freeze. So nothing much has really changed.
It's just funny. I feel like every time I go to the market, I spend a crazy amount of money, but I think that's because we're not going. Like, I might be spending a lot for that one trip, but I'm also not making those 3 extra trips. So I don't know. Dan keeps track of all the money, so I don't know if I've gone crazy on budget. But when we went to Lowe's,
everyone back home, don't go crazy. This too shall pass.
It will.
We have till May 4th with this stay-at-home order. And, I'm one of those people. I'm planning events, right? Yep. So I have the Porcupine Freedom Festival coming up in June. I had to talk to the campground owner last night up at Rogers Campground, which is the largest campground here in New Hampshire. And, he was just expressing so much frustration as well, where, he said they a lot of the resorts up north are closed. Yep. He said, with this stimulus money that's going to come out, he's very concerned that he's not actually going to be able to hire workers, right? Because they'll make more money on the dole than they're going to make.
Well, that is a serious concern, and I'm going to be upfront and honest with everybody. So I filed for unemployment. Even before the order to close, we had already taken a week off because business was just slow, and it was just we were starting to worry. But now that we are a non-essential business and we're actually closed till May 4th, I filed for unemployment. I think I'm on maybe the 3rd week. This would be the 3rd week that I'd be unemployed or furloughed or whatever we're going to call it. What's not funny. So I get that you get 50% of whatever your earnings were, right? Which is fine. I'm not your normal person, and I've got Dan. Everybody should have a Dan. But Dan takes care of us financially, and I work to provide us with things that, little extras. But once the federal money comes, that's the part that I'm like, who thought this was necessary? I could understand if they were sending money to say, we're going to pay the other 50%. So if you were taking home $500 a week and New Hampshire paid you $250, the federal government paid you $250 through the end of July, that would have made sense. But instead, what they're going to do is they're going to send everybody who's getting unemployment $600 a week. So I'm like, wait a minute. So am I going to get $600 on top of 50% of my normal earnings? Because that means that's crazy. So I'm not sure I'm understanding what the point of it is. I hope that the people who actually are dependent on their paycheck week to week, which is a lot of people, will take all the extra money that they possibly are getting and do something positive with it. I mean, like pay off your debt or bank it for your next month's rent, because I'm just concerned that people are going to be like, look at me, I've got extra money. And then come July or August, when that stops, they're going to be like, well, wait a minute, where's that? I need more money now.
Well, I mean, I think that's a legitimate concern. I think that sadly, part of what we are seeing from an institutional or systemic sort of approach is a lot of these solutions are things that actually punish people who are responsible,
yep,
who live within their means, who, have jobs, who are productive, who've planned. I have a deep freeze full of food. I have, I sort of plan for these eventualities. And so, we saved up money and we went in with a group of people to buy an investment property, and we only bought it maybe like 4 months ago, and now we're hearing, the tenants are like, yeah, we're not going to pay the rent. And I'm like, well, we can't pay the mortgage if you don't pay the rent. It's like, we're trying to level up in life too, and now we're in this situation where it's like, well, if you're a responsible human being, somehow, you get the short end of the stick.
Right.
And no one would run their budgets this way, but somehow, we think it's fine to just run the government with, trillions, $2.3 trillion, and they're talking about another $2 trillion. This is like funny money.
Well, speaking of landlords and properties and whatnot, so when they first made the order that nobody could be evicted and nobody could be foreclosed on, I wasn't really even sure if the government could actually tell the banks that they couldn't foreclose on people, but whatever. But let's just stick with landlords, right? So you couldn't evict people. Well, the governor had to issue a new order this week or in the past week saying, oh, wait, you can't evict people for non-payment of rent. You can still evict them if they are, damaging your property or if they abandon your property. Because what was happening is landlords, I mean, I imagine you might get the same email I get. I get an update, even though I'm not a landlord. I get this update about in this landlord group and things that people don't necessarily think about that things impact. For instance, we already have a housing shortage in New Hampshire. Rents are already high, and people are always concerned about that. So now what's happening, because we've said that people can't be evicted for non-payment of rent, which I understand, because if you're like me or not like me, if you're somebody who is dependent on your income and you've been furloughed, even though you've been filing for unemployment, you still haven't seen a penny, because I haven't seen a penny. So if I didn't have any money, where would I be getting food? Where would I even be getting my grocery money from? But you've got property owners who say they had somebody that was already moving out April 1st. Now they have this vacant unit that needs repairs or needs to be cleaned or all these different things. Then they have to have the concern about bringing people in to look at these places, and they'd be renting to people who immediately don't have to pay their rent. And the biggest concern was that deadbeat tenants, we're not talking about the average person, but the person who's going to screw the landlord the most is the guy who's not going to pay his rent right now because you can't evict him. And when the ban is lifted and when that rule's lifted, he's just going to leave and go someplace else because he's a deadbeat anyways. So now that landlord's on the hook for who knows how many months of rent, that the only way he could possibly recover it is by going to small claim court. And we know that is like futile. There's no way those landlords are going to leave. So many landlords are choosing to leave their places empty because it's less of a risk to not have somebody in there than to have to go in and fix it again after somebody's stayed there and not paid rent. And so all this is doing is making the rents go higher and the availability actually go down. So sometimes
I think that, you know, certainly in this situation, one of the things we're definitely seeing and something that we need to explore is the unintended consequences of things, right?
Right.
Like everyone understands we're in this difficult situation and everyone's trying to do the best of it.
Right.
But the reality is that the best solution to any of these problems is the answer is freedom. What's the question? The answer is liberty. What's the question? So, you know, if we allow people to make the right decision for them, then one has to assume in the aggregate that is going to be the best decisions, right? So when we have this sort of centralized control where we're saying there, you know, this is the way, I think that, you know, we're going to have to unpack this stuff, and people are going to have to be open to criticizing the response that has happened. I mean, we have seen the predictions, you know, be downgraded by magnitudes of order,
right. Which is great. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's wonderful, but it does make you question why we're doing some of the things that we're doing.
Well, yes, and the thing is, once again, if we had, if we approach these things as advisories and, hey, we're here, government, you know, we're here to help, so we'd like to advise you that you need to do these things, and we think these are best practices. And, you know, let's just be quite frank, they took a lot of the things they originally said were wrong, and you know, I ignored them and did different things, and it turns out I was right. You know, that's why I have a podcast called Told You So, folks. But so, you know, so I think that this can be both a learning opportunity and you know, maybe hopefully a realization for people at home that, you know, we need to make the best decisions for ourselves based on information that's available.
So speaking of bad decisions and people being a little bit more aware, and this is something that I've been really trying to not only explain to people, but just make people stop and think. I mean, we have plenty of time on our hands to stop and think, so why not do that more often? I struggle to find people who think that right now, while people are furloughed from work, while they're stuck in their homes, while they're waiting for, whether they're waiting for their $1,200 federal check or their unemployment to kick in, or they're worried about whether they need to wear a mask or if they have to wait in line at the grocery store. There's so many things that people are worried about right now. The idea of saying to the taxpayers of Manchester, we think right now is when we should raise your taxes. That to me is absolutely, somebody, like, I joke about things all the time when, like, we're playing board games and there's a bad design on a print, right? And I say, you know what's really bad is somebody made that decision and somebody approved it. So the mayor, Joyce Craig, she doesn't have any advisors that said, you know, I don't know if right now is when we should be raising taxes. People aren't going to fly. It makes my brain like explode, because right now the city should be saying, what can we as the government do to alleviate the burden that is being put on our people? It's not, not by taking more of our money, not by spending millions and millions of dollars more, when we really can get away with not doing that.
Well, so you know, let's unpack that a little bit. First of all, I do think that the mayor should be criticized for several things. The first one is the decision to not furlough non-essential employees. We
let's
closed
take
the
the
library, but
library.
we're paying the librarians. Now,
and it's not just a librarian. There's a whole staff at the library system.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm just using it as an example. So the decision was made. First of all, we're told that we're all in this together. But then when you actually unpack it, we aren't in this together. We, as the citizens, the subjects, the, people who pay the bills, are told you have to do this. You're non-essential. You're whatever. But, everyone in the city is essential. I've seen quotes that have said out of every 10 city employees, 6 are essential, 4 are non-essential.
Right.
Begs the question, why do we have 4 non-essential positions, almost half the position? Okay, but that's a conversation for a different day. Then we hear our property taxes are going up.
Right.
Then we hear we've secretly signed a teacher's contract, and I understand, I'm sure the teachers must be frustrated and all of that stuff. But looking on the bright side of things, this could have taken 10 years distance learning to roll out if we were lucky. And now we managed to do it in 2 weeks. And I'm hoping that people will embrace this and kind of go, wow, you know what? Changing things in life isn't that hard. I can do it if I set my mind to something. And instead of this sort of, like there's almost this culture of fear of change, death of curiosity, not wanting to try new things and all of that, right? Which is stagnation. That is like the worst sort of headspace that you could be living in. And so if we take this COVID situation and we turn it on its head and we look at it as opportunities, then we can say, wow, this is awesome. Maybe a bunch of teachers figure out they'd rather do distance learning.
Right.
Maybe we can totally change the model. But yeah, so they had their nice little, secret contract that happened, that was signed on last Wednesday night. So while we're in this together, we're being told one thing, and we're being told to sacrifice, and we're being told our taxes are going up, and we're being told we're non-essential. And then the state is like, oh, by the way, give us more money. We're going to give you less services, and we're paying all these people not to work. So, if you're at home, I'm running for office. Tammy's running for office.
I'm going to have to get a better backdrop. I don't have any signs back there. I need one.
Well, I was like, never let a crisis go to waste, right? So, I mean, I think it's really important for people to think about this because, we are going to have an election, and we should be thinking about, is the response the right response? We've seen, I don't know if you followed this, but there was a death and a shooting yesterday. Manchester PD.
What bugs me about that? And this isn't just in this particular instance, and it has nothing to do with us being stuck at home or anything. I always feel like we don't get the story. So the guy who was killed by the Manchester police had supposedly started that fire there was a big fire on, I forget what street. And they had said be on the lookout for this gentleman in this white truck or whatever. And the police came upon the truck over on Lakeshore Drive. And they said something about he was suspected of having a firearm. And there's a lot of this. And then he's just dead. And I always wonder, okay, so could somebody please tell me as the citizen, just tell me so that I feel less bad about it. Tell me that you pulled over because you saw the vehicle and the guy pulled out a gun and was pointing it at the police officer. Show me that the use of force that was put forward was justified. I don't want to just get a letter from the AG's office saying it's justified, because it's always justified. But what is the actual circumstance where the police take justice into their own hands and kill somebody? Now we don't even know, if he did start this fire, which I'm going to make the presumption that he did, because there was a reason they were looking for this particular person so quickly after the fire. Somebody obviously saw him start the fire. But he still has the right to, a fair trial and everything. Due
process, I mean, what we've seen happen nationwide is there's summary executions are now happening per policy and per protocol. So my concern is that unlike any other criminal investigation where someone is a photo, when I got arrested, they slapped my photo and my mugshot and my name, went in the paper. But when there's any kind of incident where there's a state employee, that is immediately secret. So what you'll see now, and just, for people who maybe didn't follow the news, so there were 2 police shootings, officer-involved shootings, which is a term I take offense with. I think we should just call it what it is. One human being shot another human being, and the question becomes, why? Right. And, if that happens in any kind of private scenario, then we unpack that why, right? And that's why we have the government, so that they can look at the facts and we can come to some kind of adjudication. What is now happening when we have our paramilitary police is the second something happens, they clamp down, and then according to protocol, everything is now, we can't tell you anything and we won't tell you anything. The investigations are not treated like a standard investigation for any other criminal case. The people who are interviewed, so the people who are involved in a shooting, so the people who discharged their firearms and others, get a week minimum to get together and figure out their story.
Right.
I think anyone who's back home knows that in a normal criminal investigation, you actually want to take everyone who was involved, put them in separate places, and immediately interview them so that you can get the facts of the matter as opposed to a good story. So my prediction is, as is always the case, they'll wait about a year. There will be a secret report, well, not secret. I mean, it'll just very quietly come out on the AG's website. Yesterday, when I read this story, I actually went because I was like, oh, wow, we haven't heard anything about that 3-person killing that the DEA and some local agencies did last year at the hotel out near the airport. So I actually went and checked the website to see, did a report come out? What did they find? What happened there? There's no report. We still don't know. And that's been more than a year.
Right.
So, so if we're calling out Joyce Craig on leadership in the city, I will, I'll call her out on that as well. It's been a year and 3 days since 3 people were murdered and no one knows what happened or why they were here or, what went on. And we do know that tear gas was deployed, that there was so much tear gas that was used that they had to close down the hotel to air it out for months on end. Like, these are serious situations with serious allegations. And basically now, just to keep people safe back home, it seems like I can try 91A this. I probably wouldn't get the documents. They would just tell me, oh, you know what? We need to know everything about you. But even though we purport to work for you, we don't have to tell you anything, right? That's how it works now. And, the AG's office, who are the people who are investigating these things, are the same people who are literally fighting at taxpayers' expense to keep a list of untrustworthy police officers secret from us. So I don't know who in this scenario we're supposed to trust, but I'm not feeling the warm and fuzzies. I'm sorry.
My clock's telling me we have 3 minutes. I miss Brendan because we usually, when we're in the studio, we have secrets behind the screen that nobody else can see that tells us our time and things like that. Back to, I'm not trying to, I just want to get back before we run out. If you think that the city should not be raising your taxes, if you think this is the wrong time to be increasing spending and increasing the burden on the taxpayers, which means it's on the landlords, which means it's on the renters, there's a petition out there. I posted it on the ManchTalk Facebook page this morning so that people could sign it. It's out there all over the place on Facebook, but if you can't find it, you can email me at manchtalk@gmail.com and I'll send you a link to it. But go out and sign it and tell the mayor and the alderman that, this isn't it, the time. I'm pretty sure we can find ways to save not spend money in just this one year so that we have a chance to recover a little bit financially.
Oh, I did it back at the envelope thing, and I saved over $1 million just by being like, bing, 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 bing. We don't need this.
There is a lot of discretionary spending in our city budget. That's just the reality of it all. The other thing I want to remind people is that even though we have a stay-at-home order, even Governor Sununu was saying there's nothing wrong with getting out there and taking a walk. Just be safe. Don't crowd other people. Stay 6 feet away from other people. There's great places in Manchester. The rail trail is wonderful. Livingston Park is wonderful. Cedar Swamp's great. I know you went up Mount Uncanunic the other day. That's a great hike if you want to actually have a little bit of a challenge.
And that was straight up the mountain.
It's a real hike.
Horses in my legs afterwards. I was like, damn, that was a workout.
If you do go out and walk and you want to share pictures on Facebook, Governor Sununu created a hashtag home hike challenge. So basically reminding people that we should stay closer to home and not venture off into other communities to just try to swell whatever it is we're trying to swell. So get out there, enjoy the weather. It's going to be crappy for the rest of the week, but the weekend's supposed to be dry. If you have any questions, email us, or you can follow us on Facebook at ManchTalk. Otherwise, I think Carla and I are going to go back to our, home life for the rest of the week. We'll see you.
By which we mean we're going to put our pajamas back on. And,
I think I still have my t-shirt pants on. I am actually going to go back out and work in the yard again today and get some takeout lunch from Unity Cafe. I had a great salad on sale today.
I'm going to go for a nice long walk while the sun's out, and probably do some gardening this afternoon as well.
So take care, stay safe, and stay healthy, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Peace out.